Hi, everyone. This is a content warning. We are going to be talking about the way that men have sex with women. We're going to talk kind of graphically about sex and power. So if that is not something that you want to hear about for the next hour, you can return for next week or return when you are feeling ready for it, and we'll just get into it. Hello, and welcome to How We Live Online. I'm Christina.
I'm Joanna.
And Joanna is outside on a Vermont campus. What's it called again?
Middlebury.
Oh, Middlebury. And she looks really academic with her glasses.
Yeah, just getting my vitamin D.
Okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. And I actually scared myself doing this research. So in a way, it's a Halloween episode, I guess.
I was thinking that too. It's like actually a really good episode for the time of year.
Yeah, it's scary, everybody. First, I'm going to introduce you guys to this idea, the uncanny valley, which either I discovered in my research last season and didn't mention it, or I very briefly mentioned it. But essentially, the uncanny valley is this relation between an object's resemblance to being human and the emotional response that humans have to that object. So the x-axis is human likeness, and then the y-axis is familiarity. So if we start with a teddy bear, it doesn't look human, but it is something that's familiar to us and it's cute. And then as soon as we get to robots or ET or something, it has human inspirations, but it's not human. So even something as kind of gross as ET, we're not so scared of. But as soon as we get to maybe a corpse or a zombie, we know that those things look very human, but they're not human. And that's where that valley comes in. So it's essentially this positive correlation. Am I using the right words? The positive correlation of human likeness and familiarity. It goes up and up and up until we get to zombie, corpse, sex doll maybe, and it drops into the negative, and our human response to it, or any kind of prosthetic, things can give us the heebie-jeebies, especially when not attached to an actual human, obviously.
Yeah.
And
I take offense to ET being gross though. Excuse me on that.
okay,
ET's
so I was
cutie.
going to get into that a little bit because ET is familiar to us as a cultural icon, but think of your initial response to ET. Maybe you loved him. I don't know. I remember being very grossed out.
I guess you're right. But the other thing that the concept makes me think of, just if no one has heard of it at all, you know how they say humans are the way we think about fish versus the way we think about mammals, in terms of vegetarianism or veganism, your ability to sympathize with an animal that has more human features is greater, so people can more easily justify harm towards fish or insects because they look less human.
Yeah, and they also have generally smaller brains, which also makes them less human to us too. They have less of an emotional.
Right. Yeah. What's up
mind.
with humans? Why are humans so obsessed with themselves?
I don't know. Let's get into that. Let's talk about Pygmalion, the myth of the sculptor who made the most beautiful woman ever, fell in love with her, but she was a sculpture. So there is this history of, and in this episode, I'm mostly going to be talking about men and their desire, their sexual desire for women, because it's the most recorded kind of sexual desire in history. And it's also more directly related to this idea that we're going to be talking about, which is the relationship between this uncanny valley and sex dolls, and the introduction to sex dolls in the mainstream which I suspect will be happening very, very soon. So, we start off with that ancient myth, and there's also like, so I read a few articles that kind of all decided to steal all their information from this one from The Atlantic. And the Atlantic article is called A Straight Male History of Sex Dolls by Julie Beck. Basically, she goes through all of these ideas of like creating some kind of figure of a woman and having sex with it. Pygmalion is just a myth describing, falling in love with it, being obsessed with it. We see that in Frankenstein and Pinocchio. People becoming obsessed with their own creations. These weren't considered sex dolls, but there's like a possible recording or like idea that men in the ancient times in ancient Greece and Rome would like masturbate to statues of women. And, that makes sense. They didn't have like Pornhub. And it is like this idealized female figure. Like people have posters of Megan Fox in their bedrooms. Like it's yeah, okay, fine. Like I'll give them that. But whatever. We all have sexual desire. Where it gets disturbing is, I think, in the creation of the female form to look as mostly human as possible, and then putting them in these like actually very degrading, positions, literal positions. Mm-hmm. Dutch sailors created sex dolls out of like scraps of leather and other fabric to have sex with on the ship.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah. Okay, wait, let me get
straight. What ship? When? What?
Okay. Leather. Okay, throughout history, men without access to beautiful statues, but with an inclination to make love to woman-shaped things, have made do in various ways. Sailors often use cloth to fashion fornicatory dolls known as Dame de Voyage in French or Dama de Viaje in Spanish. In modern-day Japan, sex dolls are sometimes known as Dutch wives, a reference to the hand-sewn leather masturbation puppets made by the 17th century Dutch sailors who traded with the Japanese. So this is a European thing. This is a white people thing. There's, a long history of creating these things. There's also like an urban legend that Hitler asked people to manufacture, like I think this is just completely a legend, but like apparently Hitler didn't want anyone to fantasize about non-Aryan women, and wanted to create Aryan sex dolls for people to have sex with instead of like lusting over people who didn't look the way that he wanted them to.
My gosh.
And then there's also in the early 1900s, the artist Oskar Kokoschka was broken up with, and he was devastated, and so he made a replica of this woman that broke up with him, and he used her seamstress to make clothing for this doll. Yeah, okay, wait. Historians differ on what happened after he received the doll. One thing is for sure, it was extremely furry, covered in skin, more reminiscent of a plush stuffed animal than a human woman.
What?
But he was enraptured by it all the same, and I guess, okay. So in two different articles, I got different things. In one, it said that he made this doll and got the seamstress to like clothe it. In this one, it's saying that he got the seamstress to make like a cloth doll. Either way, he designed a doll that looked exactly like this composer, Alma Mahler, who broke up with him, and then he fell in love with it until he burned it.
Can I just say, we are so shortly in, and I am absolutely baffled by this history and this economy of these things. Like, I had no idea about this.
Yeah, the thing is that we've all, and this article gets into this, and I really suggest reading it because I'm just going through like, the craziest parts. But it's just like men have historically had all of the resources to get their comeuppance, and like with the shame of being left by a woman, the internal and private comeuppance of that is like creating an image of her, fucking it and destroying it.
Oh my God.
Like that is so like it actually makes me like sick and sweaty to talk about and think about. But it's also like, you know, it's completely fascinating. Like and of course, this is the history of this thing. Of course, it's not just about, you know, providing disabled people with like sexual pleasure or comfort. Like that's a lot of the rhetoric that these companies use. And even the patent for one of these sex doll companies, like the first on the list of like what the patent is under is like surgical, medical, dental, veterinary apparatus. It's an assistive device adapted for the disabled. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. But who's actually buying them? So artist Matt McMullen in the 90s started working on the more there's the 1970s like blow up doll that like I feel like I know what that looks like. It looks like actually
that's what I would think of.
Okay.
When I think sex doll.
Well, they're very different now, but there were those. And then in the 90s, this artist, Matt McMullen, started making the silicone ones. When he first made them, they didn't have like a vaginal canal that you could have sex with. I think it just like was a doll that was sexy. And then he got all these messages asking if the doll would work in that way. So he included it. And apparently Howard Stern like had sex with one of his dolls on his radio show, which I didn't take the time to go find, and honestly I don't know if I want to, but yeah. And then of course like all these dolls are female, like, and if you look them up, which you should, just so you know what I'm talking about, the modern sex doll is between 75 and 110 pounds. Hilarious.
Wait, it weighs?
Yeah, they're heavy.
Okay, I'm like I said, I just think about these blow up dolls, which is like air. I have actually no idea what you're talking about.
You're gonna be upset.
Right now.
They have ball joints. They have movable fingers. They have movable hands. They have huge boobs.
Are these real?
Boobs that would kill, like the proportions, and this article doesn't even get into this, but like we've talked about this with Barbie. The proportions of these dolls are not human.
Why am I so embarrassed to be looking at this right now?
No, what happened to me was I wanted to like, you know, look at the market. Okay, so I Google them. Of course, an Amazon link is the first thing that comes up. I click on it. I'm fucking logged into my mom's Amazon. And they always do the suggested stuff. So I'm really sorry to my family if you're listening to this episode, which like is kind of weird of you, but I guess you want to learn about it. Yeah, I'm not shopping for sex dolls for research purposes only.
I like am looking at these and I can't believe this is a real thing. Like it just looks like an animation.
Exactly. Does it make you uncomfortable?
For so many reasons, it makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, so Matt McMullen is still, you know, making shit like this. He's an artist, and like, you know, just one of these terrifying AI freaks. Ew, oh my God, there's so many pictures of him like posing next to these dolls.
I hate that.
Okay, so he's the CEO of Realbotics, and he, I would say, is like responsible for this new very, very human sex doll. And if anyone knows anything more about this and wants to correct me, please go ahead. But he seems to be the one who is like the most of a trailblazer in this way. If you go to his website, it's like this completely black screen. His name is really big, and then like you scroll to the side, and there are all these questions that say, "Is it possible for a human being to form an emotional connection with an AI-driven robot? Will human-like robots one day be accepted as part of our society? Why are people intimidated by the future of AI and robots?" Which, I'm sorry, now I see pictures of him. He's freaking me out. It's our focus to build robots and the AI systems that run them that can occupy a personal space. Okay, this website is very trippy. So you have to like scroll through a black screen and it's like quotes and then his face and then more quotes and then someone holding a silicone head
Oh my God.
with like, you know, a cute button nose, like upturned nose, really full lips. She has a small ear, like perfect eyebrows, big eyes. Could non-humans help humans form lasting bonds? By giving the end user the ability to attach multiple faces, different eye colors, and customize personalities and voices, we believe these robots can become more than machines. They can become companions. These dolls, as that suggests, are completely customizable. So if you go to like one of these stores or conventions or something, you can like pick out the body, then pick out the head and maybe the hair and the eye color. I saw this picture that was like all the heads like on a wall, and some of them were smiling like with their teeth, and some of them had their mouths open in an O. Some of them had like very big like downturned lips, like kind of just like soft sensual like pouting that were still like parted open a little bit, and just generally expressions that honestly looked like a woman who was like passed out to
Oh
me.
my God.
That's what I thought of. Like
Uh,
they to that I also am a female viewer of this. I'm a woman viewer of these things. They freak me out. So when I was looking at them, I was like, what the fuck? But I don't know how you could look at them and not think that they look like human women with eyes glazed over. Like they just don't look real. They
yeah.
look they let me go back to the picture so I can describe it better.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm sort of confused because, I mean, by the sound of the statement, it almost sounds like they're not trying, like they acknowledge that it's like a creation. And they're sort of saying like we're embracing, like, why is this uncomfortable to you? Like we're embracing the fact that this is not human and that's a different thing and they think it's good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess it's interesting that the point is they've sort of like embraced that space of like, it's not human. Does that make you feel weird?
Yeah, no, I mean the use of intimidate, like the marketing
Yeah.
is really good. Like they have to address this, they have to make this conceit, this like argumentative conceit of like some may say that this is wrong. Like, but why do you think it's wrong? What about our amazing companionship device makes you so intimidated? And, you know, what that does is that triggers like, okay, yeah, I guess because I don't want to be replaced. And then it like makes you wonder, I don't know, it like puts these terrible questions in your head of like,
Interesting. So you're because I was thinking that and I was like you were saying, sorry to completely cut you off, but
no,
like
go crazy.
because like why does this make you uncomfortable? Like you were saying earlier, like isn't that a question like for an actual buyer of these things, not for you? Like you were saying, like you're a female viewer, you're not really interested in buying one. So it's interesting that you're also being interrogated.
Yeah, yeah, that's and I think it has to do that,
Yeah.
you know, in order to succeed. It has to address that concern because it's a very obvious concern. Like for anyone, ugh, I just looked at that picture again. It's just back to the intimidation thing. Why are you intimidated by this? I would, for me, answering that question, I'm not intimidated by it, but of course, I'm just like disgusted. And for them to like posit this question to anyone who, you know, goes to the website, even like someone like me who's doing it out of curiosity, because I'm sure that they like, you know, have considered that people are just looking at this stuff to see it because it's so like sensational, like in the kind of in negative negative
Mm-hmm.
connotation,
Yeah.
sensational. The question, why does this make you feel intimidated, is like ask the you know, usually the woman viewer of this curious woman viewer of this thing, like what you think that like this is going to replace you, or like what you think that this is really actually bad for the men in your life, or you think that this is going to really like affect the way that you're treated. Like no, it's just a way, it's a completely good thing. Like, don't you want everyone to feel cared for or loved or like have a companion? That's like where my mind went with it. And then I would imagine that like someone who's interested in buying something like this would be like a male, like a man being like, I'm not intimidated. Like a defensive, like, what? Like, you don't scare me. And that's such a masculine response to that.
Yeah.
That's just where my mind went with the marketing on his website.
Yeah, I just like can't get over it. Like that's so strange. And it's so like, to me, I'm not even feeling anything close to intimidation hearing about this. It's like purely disgust. So like, why are you telling me that like the feeling I'm feeling is intimidation? That's not it at all. Like, what?
That's why I feel like that word is for men.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I feel like the masculine response to that is like a defensive, like, I can handle it. Oh,
Yeah.
what? Like I could run a marathon if I decided to.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you talking about? You're a cheerleader, you can do a back handspring, like I could do that if I wanted to.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? That, and it's smart.
It is smart, I guess. Yeah. Damn. I like am really trying to like run through like a pro cons list, sort of like how you were saying of like, oh, this could be the potential benefits of like these things. Maybe this is a stupid question, but I'm gonna ask it because I feel like it might be on people's heads. So like this is obviously female objectification, but it is an object. And I'm confused by that. Like, are we just trying to make female objectification like so like this is like absolutely the line, you know what I'm saying, of like this is I you know what I'm trying to say, like I can't even say it, like I can't even like comprehend like this is they're just trying to make it like normal, or like I don't know, like I can't even say it.
Yeah, no, you're short circuiting. So what I think that
I am truly.
This is what I gathered from you. This is so clearly female object.
We're both short circuiting.
Stop. This is so clearly female objectification, and it's not a woman. It is an object. It's
Right.
the objectification of the female form, which all of these men are saying like there are no male sex dolls because as an artist and a creator, the female form is my muse. I wonder why. Anyway, I would say that this is crossing the line, or just like it is so fucking obvious. Like I'm looking at this picture of like these big-eyed, small eyebrows, small nose, big-lipped heads that literally like their eyelids are like half closed and they're just like they're terrifying. Imagine walking through a haunted house with those heads and like a strobe light.
Oh my God.
Shit my pants. So it is so obvious that this is taking the idea of woman, reducing it to its like sex objects, and then doing whatever you want with it. Like that is literally objectifying women when you turn their form into like a literal object that you can throw around. And as is the case with that artist Oscar or whatever, he burned it.
Yeah.
There's a quote from Matt McMullen that says in the article, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Do I think the dolls will replace women or threaten or to replace women? Absolutely not.
It's just so not the point.
What this is doing is so obvious to me, which is it's creating an object for a man to put all of his sexual or even romantic desire into, that can come in any form. Like it can be really toxic and it can be really objectifying or like dangerous or angry or like deeply sad, really emotional, whatever. He can put all of that feeling into his fantasy about his doll and have sex with it. And then anytime he tries to form a relationship with a person, a human woman person, he's always going to be comparing that to his doll that he has full control over. It's a way to never be hurt, because you are in full control over the relationship that you have with this thing that you have decided to turn into an idea of a woman. They're never going to break up with you. They're never going to get mad at you. They're never going to refuse sex with you. You know, like they are the ideal in the eyes of like a man who, I don't know, they just represent like everything that a woman is supposed to be, you know, complacent, compliant, ready for anything, quiet, and like sexually desirable and always willing to have sex. Like does both with the like Madonna whore thing. Like she is like a quiet girl,
Yeah.
but she'll have sex with you in any way that you want.
Okay, I'll ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where my head is going. So I'm trying to think like along this vein of like, this is not a replacement, right? Like this is let's think about a world where both these things have a place. Okay. In this context and in others. Okay. I'm thinking about a Roomba. Roomba is a little robot that vacuums for me. Okay. What if my Roomba like had a form, like a human form, and it performed household tasks for me, right? Like I feel like that's another common thing about robots doing is like, you know, like a cooking robot, you know, your household cleaning robot. I'm just really trying to think like about, because to me, I think it's really reductionist to think about companionship without, and like relationships without thinking about exactly what you're saying about like the power that's inherent in there and like how important control is. Even in relationships between humans, you can see that it's a completely dysfunctional relationship if there's a power imbalance or control imbalance that is not addressed or, you know, is toxic, right? Like that exists in humans too. Don't like without the robots. And I'm just sort of wondering, like, in general, if when we bring more and more robots into this world, how that is addressed and how that affects our relationships with each other. Like, is it okay for when we have robots that are so human-like to have these relationships that have such a power imbalance? Does it depend on the context, a sexual context versus a friendship context or a household servant context? Like, I don't know. And it's weird to think about because I think that there will have to be a place for both robot relationships of all kinds, right? Like any kind. Robot and humans living together eventually, I guess. But what will that look like and how do we decide what's okay and what's not okay?
I think for sex robots, sex is always linked with power. And it's also a way to enact physical violence and like psychological violence. And the introduction of the female sex doll that looks so human, but also not. They have like, the physical description of them is like they have a huge butt. They have like very big, like bulbous labia. They have huge boobs, very, very small waist, and like very small arms and legs, and like a, you know, small neck, small nose, big eyes, big mouth. You can put them in any position that you want. Yeah, so it allows, what it does is it allows men to enact any kind of sexual violence that they want with no repercussions. And supposedly no repercussions on an actual human person until they get used to that kind of action and actually do it on somebody else. That's what I think. You know, like it allows people to like, and this is probably the darkest way to think about it. And it is the way that I think about it. Like it creates an opportunity for men to do whatever they want to a quote unquote woman. Possibly definitely justify it because, it's an object, it's not a real person. And then as soon as they maybe gain the confidence to speak to real women or they get an opportunity to or whatever, they are of the mindset that everything that I'm doing with this real person, I'm comparing it to what I've done to this doll. And she'll let me do anything I want. And this woman is not complying, and that could result in definitely some psychological damage and possibly physical violence. I think it's normalizing like scary sex.
Yeah.
I watched sex doll porn.
Oh no.
Because I was like, I have to see this in action, obviously.
Oh my God.
I don't suggest it. Don't do it. So I went to Pornhub because I was like, where else? Because of course, Bellesa, the female porn website that sells vibrators, no sex doll porn. Can't even imagine. Why not? Every time there's just a lot of porn stars with the name doll or dolly. So those are the only things I came up with that. But Pornhub had some people. So basically it was like shots of men's torsos down and then like a woman laid out into honestly, surprisingly, usually a missionary. But I think to like see the boobs or whatever, because they're like grabbing onto the silicone boobs and having sex with this form or whatever. And it's so real that like their boobs are like jiggling, like with the movement of the sex. And it's like all very like far away from the doll so that they have the visual of the doll, I'm guessing, having like rough penetrative sex with it. But one that I saw that actually made me like queasy, which maybe we should put like a trigger warning.
I think so.
I think we should put a trigger warning at the beginning of this episode. The doll was not like a life-size doll. Like it was not one of those like 75 to 100-pound dolls. It was like probably the size of, it was maybe like 2 to 3 feet tall. Maybe 2. Okay, and it did not look like a child. Okay. I will say that. It did not look like a child. It looked very much like a voluptuous.
Oh my God.
But the waist of this doll was probably only twice as wide as like the penis entering it.
Oh my God.
It was, and I didn't watch any of these all the way through. I just like searched sex doll and then like scrolled down because like Pornhub will just give you like
just skimming.
Literally like so disturbing to see because visually like it looks like a woman but it's not a woman. It's like an actual small doll of a woman. Like, yeah, that was really disgusting. So there is not only a market for having sex with them but also watching people have sex with them. I also want to add that you can like buy parts in case they break, including, interestingly enough, if you look up male sex doll, more often than not, you'll see like a female form with a penis attached to it. There's not usually like a male sex doll. Like I saw like one. And of course the penis was like 2 feet long. I'm like, what?
Oh my God. Yeah,
a lot of these places like include an insert to like add the penis onto. So it also like allows men, and I'm saying men because it's like most of these buyers are men, to like explore having sex with someone with a penis that like maybe they wouldn't be doing otherwise too. So like in that way it like creates a new kind of fantasy too, or like because I kept thinking about like dildos and I kept thinking about like, okay, like women who use sex toys, that feels like pretty accepted now. Like this, people will openly talk about vibrators and like dildos and stuff. And dildos look like penises, like kind of, But like even on The Bachelor, in like a recent episode of The Bachelor, like someone's vibrator was like out of their suitcase and people were like laughing about it. So it's like, and if something is like on The Bachelor, it's like mainstream accepted.
Yeah, that's a good marker.
And I was like, and this is my thought before I went through all of this. I was like, how different can this really be? And it's really different because it has a face and these people name them. And on the stuff, they create like the doll is a character.
Oh my God.
And so like there's like this little blonde one, and it was like Latina gets fucked by I'm like, and now we're like assigning like ethnicity to the
Oh my
doll.
God.
Like, what? And of course, most of them are white. That you can get like different races, but most of them are white. Yeah, and you can also get. I'm just listing disturbing things now, but you can also get like you can like get the boobs that have like the nipples just look like giant, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. I didn't see this as like a thing because it's not really like a beauty standard or whatever. Like very, very big nipples on this thing. And I was like, huh. And then it's because those boobs are penetrable. You can fuck the boob, like the individual boob. I'm sorry if I'm like ruining your day.
I'm just like, one, I'm thinking so many things. One, I am so glad to not be the ham on the sex doll episode when I am locked in a public space. Like, I am so glad I have headphones on right now and the people walking behind me cannot hear what is going on. That is the main thing that I'm thinking. This information about the boobs is surprising, but given the rest of what has been laid out before me, wholly unsurprising. One thing that this has sort of made me think of, which you kind of touched on at the beginning, is about like a Western culture where like I'm just sort of thinking about like, animism, which is a belief system that like all objects have some sort of spiritualness or spiritual value, which was not like a belief system that I really know anything about, except that that's the definition of it. I was not raised in that way of thinking.
It's Japanese, isn't it?
I don't know. I think it's like an umbrella term for probably a lot of different places that have some kind of belief like that. But I think it's just interesting that like these are questions we have to confront because, and there's a lot of different questions we have to confront, like I mentioned earlier, like the vegetarianism kind of thing, like because of our cultural values, even environmentalism, the environment, the way we treat it, like these are problems that result because of the way that we're taught to empathize. I don't know if it's necessarily the right thing to like believe that like everything around us has a personality or like a spirit, but probably to at least consider more our place as just another thing in this world and not as the thing with all the power to do whatever the heck we want. Like that's just sort of what I'm thinking about, is like, how did we just like, once again, how did we get here? That like this is something that humans have created. I don't know. It's a little bit sad, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, okay, when I looked it up, it has like Asian origin and African indigenous origins to animism. And I think like a lot of indigenous religions consider animism. But according to Wikipedia. Yeah, this idea that like I am the star. Who can do whatever they want is like a very colonial idea. And it is a very Western idea. It's like I am the leader, I'm the trailblazer. This is my life, it doesn't affect other people. Which really is the rhetoric around this stuff, is like, it's not going to replace women. It doesn't affect human relationships. It just like allows for a new kind of relationship, which, people already create in their heads, like with their posters of Megan Fox or their like ideals of characters, or like even crushes that they have on other people. But the thing about that is that it exists in your head, which of course has damage, and it can create that kind of damage that I was talking about earlier, where like you convince yourself that like this is the correct kind of relationship and I should be in charge, and then you like ruin someone else's life with that idea. But there is such a danger in giving someone the physical ability to do that. And it's also kind of like, no, I would say it's definitely using this idea of like sex as a completely emotionless thing that like some people experience, I guess. I haven't experienced that. I don't like, and I don't think that that's like an easy thing to do. But it's and of course there are terrible repercussions to like having sex with a human form and thinking that there's no, you know, emotionality attached to it, because like clearly there is, because they're like making these dolls have names and like dressing them up and like giving them ethnicities and making the dolls the star of some Pornhub channel. Like there are just so many reasons why the idea that like this isn't a replacement for women is fucking wrong, because they're making characters of them. Like, and I don't know if these will become popular, because I think America has still a lot of hangups around sex. They're also extremely expensive. They're like $1,500. You know, if they ever get to be cheaper, maybe. I feel like American society is still so traditional about sex. So like quiet about it, that honestly maybe these won't even ever take off in kind of a mainstream way. Like I don't know if I'll ever know someone who admits to having or even actually has a sex doll in my lifetime. And if that does happen, I'd be very curious to track how, because well, you know, well, I mean, like people are like talking about their vibrators, and like the social degradation of women is always accepted, so maybe it will happen. But I'm gonna hang on to hope that the American like shamer on sex will persist, if that means that we can keep this fucking under wraps. People,
amen,
because they scare me.
Agree.
Oh my God. Yeah, I don't really have anything else to add. I feel like a lot of this was not really super opinionated, but more just like explaining what sex dolls are, because they're just so shocking. Like I can't even get over it. I would say that our stance is that they do objectify women. How could they not? They literally objectify them. They're no good, and I hope that they stay secret.
I agree. I feel like having had this explained to me has made an interesting feeling of making me feel like a prude for not literally knowing anything about this. But also like what? I don't know. I don't know.
There and two, it's like such a male to female, like male user, female object kind of thing. Like if that's the only market, well, I guess there is a market for that.
Yeah. I would also be curious though, like if, I mean, just to like put a call out there, like if anyone has any other opinions or like other things that we didn't think about or talk about, because I feel like personally it's not something I'm really curious to look up more of by myself, because it is just so disturbing and I feel so disturbed. But like even what you were talking about of like the accessibility, or like I'd just be curious to know more about like any takes or examples of like an ethical sex doll, you know what I'm saying? Like that would be interesting, and I'd welcome anyone who, you know, knows anything about that.
Yeah, I would say that because this topic is so shocking, we didn't even really get into too much analysis of it, but more just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So if anyone has any thoughts about it, please let us know. You can DM us at How We Live Online on Instagram. You can also let us know if we are prudes and need to think more widely about the positive possibilities of sex dolls. And I feel like this was not a Halloween-y spooky episode, but like a psychological thriller.
Oh my God.
Like more like deep disruption of the soul. So sorry about that. I suggest watching some animal videos after this, like of animals cuddling. Just like get the disgusting human psyche out of your head and just like watch some other creatures in love. Yeah, so thank you for listening. Again, if you have any questions or comments or anything to add, anything you want to show us or want us to talk about, DM us at How We Live Online on Instagram, and share this episode with a friend who you think can handle it. If you're not intimidated.
If you're not intimidated.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.